Welcome to our mental health awareness series for Fantasy and Frames. I am your host, Zach, at FF Triple Batman. This series will come out every Monday morning through the summer on our YouTube channel. Subscribe, hit the bell, do whatever you need to so you don't miss any of our episodes. We will discuss a topic each episode, and if you ever have any questions, please leave a comment or you can feel free to DM me if you'd like to keep it private. I could not think of a better person to talk about mental health than with an expert, my wife, Meghan. So this episode, we are discussing a topic that makes most people uncomfortable, but that is not a good enough reason not to talk about it. As we have learned throughout the series, it is important to be aware of your emotions and not fall into negative avoidance cycles. So today, we are going to talk about shame.
So, shame is not a word I hear very often, even though it's a very important emotion to be aware of. People typically group guilt and shame together and only verbalize it as guilt. I have to teach my clients the difference between guilt and shame to ensure that they are properly labeling their emotions. The emotions of guilt and shame are similar in a lot of ways, but they are also fundamentally different. I want to ask you something before we get into things, though. When I told you we were discussing this topic today, what was your understanding of guilt and shame?
Honestly, I think I use the emotions interchangeably. Until you brought up this topic, I never gave it much thought about the difference between shame and guilt. I am glad you're explaining this concept in this series because it is incredibly helpful as people continue to process through their thoughts and emotions.
So, both guilt and shame involve doing something against morals, values, and or belief systems. The key distinction between the two is guilt is internal and it builds from within you. You have said or done something that goes against your morals, values, and or belief system. When you're not consistent with your morals and values, then you need to make a change so that you're being true to yourself and what you believe in, whatever that may be. It's important to hold yourself accountable in circumstances where guilt is involved if you want to properly alleviate that negative emotion. So, if guilt is internal, then shame is external and builds from within others. You have said or done something that goes against someone else's morals, values, and or belief system. And when you're not consistent with their morals and values, they feel uncomfortable and possibly even offended. Generally speaking, it is not your problem if someone else is feeling offended when you are acting according to your morals and values, but not to theirs. If you make a change to alleviate someone else's discomfort, then you are not being true to yourself and what you believe in. Therefore, it is their responsibility to hold themselves accountable for their thoughts and emotions regarding your words, actions, or even how you present yourself, if they want to properly alleviate that negative emotion within themselves.
Okay, that's really powerful. It is important to note that those morals do not need to be the stereotypical good morals. You are saying guilt and shame happen when morals or beliefs are misaligned, regardless of what the morals or beliefs are. So, why is shame an emotion I need to worry about if it comes to someone else?
Shame may not necessarily seem like much of a problem at all when I explain it like that. However, if that shame gets internalized, then it becomes extremely problematic. When we internalize the shame that is pushed onto us from others, we are ultimately taking responsibility for alleviating others' discomfort and personal accountability. That is an impossible task to take on since we cannot control the thoughts, emotions, or actions of anyone else, and we can only truly control our own thoughts, emotions, and actions. This is also an impossible task if they are uncomfortable or offended by something that you cannot change or control, or something that is fundamental to who you are as a person, such as your skin color, culture, gender, sexual orientation, religion, overall style, financial stability, and so on. There will always be someone in the world who doesn't agree with you or your choices, but do you let all those people impact how you live your life?
Okay, so what happens if you continue to internalize the shame? I am sure plenty of people do not realize they are even internalizing the shame they experience from other people.
Unfortunately, a lot of parenting tactics are based on utilizing shame to get the kids to do what they want. How many times did you hear an adult say to you when you were a child, "You should be ashamed of yourselves"? How many times did you have to hide your thoughts, emotions, or actions so you did not embarrass or upset your family? How many times did you try to change your personality to make the adults around you more comfortable? How many times did you feel compelled to swoop in and solve someone else's problems for them so they didn't have to struggle in front of you? All of these scenarios stem from shame. We were trained to accept or internalize that shame early on. So it became a normal thing for us to do. It becomes so normalized that the shame will generalize outside of your family. How many times did you change your vacation requests since your boss was overwhelmed and kept saying, "It's not a good time"? How many times did you feel the need to explain yourself in your relationship? Everyone is always asking and pushing the next step, starting from committing to a relationship, to getting engaged, to getting married, to having a child, to giving that child a sibling, to trying for the other gender if the first two children were the same gender, to getting lectured on birth control since the world is already overpopulated. You kind of see where I'm going at here. Everyone always has an opinion about what you're doing with your life. In a world that is beautifully diverse and different, there's also a lot of fear of the unknown and things that make us question ourselves and our belief system. It is our responsibility to process and cope within ourselves. But unfortunately, not everyone in this world is emotionally aware and accountable. So they assume that their way is always right, or they take the easy way out and basically request that you do all the change for them.
Since internalizing shame is so problematic, how do you stop internalizing shame?
Some of my clients struggle more with internalizing the shame than others. And for those clients who struggle, the shame seems to be a root issue of all the problematic situations they discuss in therapy. The first step is to be aware that it's happening and that you are internalizing the shame. I know I've said this before, and I'm going to keep saying it. You cannot change anything if you don't know or won't accept that it's a problem. So once you know what's happening, you have to explore why you're taking accountability or responsibility for others. You'll start to notice patterns and themes in the shame you've been internalizing. So, for instance, the theme of ambition can be a big one. If you are always striving for the next step, it's going to be expected to, like in school, you're expected to go to the next grade each year. You're expected to learn new skills and advance in your extracurricular activities. Once you graduate school and start your career, you lose most, if not all, of your athletics, clubs, and art programs. You can lose your sense of purpose when you don't have anything within reach to achieve. Promotions in the workforce can take a significant amount of time and sacrifice to advance in those ranks. So, if you are unable to channel that ambition into something reasonable and productive, like a hobby, then you can really struggle with internalizing either the actual or perceived shame of not being successful enough, or not knowing what to do with yourself when the map to advancing in life after school is not as clear cut as it used to be.
Okay, so we're on a fantasy football channel. I want to bring up a topic that has to do with fantasy football. So I've heard on several shows, these are coming from full-time analysts, and they joke that they either don't talk about their job or they have a hard time explaining what their job is to friends or family. I think they make a joke of it because they are feeling ashamed and they don't know how to process it. Can you explain why it shouldn't be a problem to talk about what you love to do?
Sure. I do want to mention that this scenario doesn't just have to apply to full time analysts. It can also apply to unpaid analysts doing it in their free time or any other career or hobby you love. Or, that career or hobby may not be commonly understood. So, if you're doing something that you truly love, then clearly you have no guilt about what you're doing. It's not your responsibility to make everyone around you at ease or comfortable with what you choose to do with your time. People who do that often get stuck in careers or commitments they absolutely loathe. So, as you were saying in that scenario, they were minimizing what they were doing by using humor to make light of the situation. If you continue to respond in ways that don't align with your thoughts about how you spend your time, then you're depriving your friends and family of the opportunity to know more about you and your passion. It's not always easy putting on an act at your own expense. And once you start that negative cycle, you get stuck replaying it over and over. So the more you feel the need to explain yourself, the more you get stuck having to actually explain yourself to everyone else around you. So once you can acknowledge that shame, that maybe people just don't understand what you love to do with your time, you can focus your thoughts, emotions, and things that allow you to stay true to yourself without internalizing the negativity coming from others.
Perfect. So to summarize, guilt is when you do something that doesn't align with your morals, and shame is when someone else believes you did something that doesn't align with their morals. You cannot control what other people think or do, so you cannot take on their shame as a problem you need to fix. To put it bluntly, it is their problem, not yours. If you have an issue with internalizing shame, the first step is to be aware of the problems, themes, or patterns, and then you can stop allowing shame to dictate your life. So thank you, Meghan, for sharing such valuable information. Thank you all for joining us today. We hope you were able to get some information from this that will help you or someone you know. We'll be back next Monday at 9 a.m. for episode 9 to discuss self-sabotage. That's going to be a big episode, so please make sure you tune in for that one. Again, the best way to watch the series is to subscribe to the Fantasy and Frames YouTube channel you're watching right now. Like the video, hit the subscribe button. Easiest way to do it. If you are struggling or having suicidal thoughts, then immediately call or text 988. That is the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline and is available 24/7. Thank you all, and we'll see you next week.